Arc 6, The Corridor of Memories. Chapter 55, You Who Awaits the Snowmelt. Black, murky, distant, dense, deep, weighty, bitter darkness was what was present. Coarsely, like all things negative of this world were being blended into a heterogeneous mixture, he felt such cumbrous, choking darkness thickly coiling upon his entire body. His face, his body, his limbs, his supposed skin were all corrupted by that darkness, and oozily it soaked into his blood, and accompanying that was a sense of discomfort as if calling upon his thirst. Imaginable or not, it felt as if all leftover parts of his body were covered with scabs. His skin became taut, and the feeling of it not even feeling like the skin of a human upon touch reversed, for the fingers that would touch the scabs were covered with scabs themselves, and he lost understanding of the form of his true self. No, what he truly couldn't understand was not merely his outward appearance. Something further in the interior, as if his essence. Otherwise what should likely be named as his soul. Losing its form, the state of his own soul, at the end of the repetition of this sheerly hopeless straying, he felt as if fingers were coming into view from those fragments. As his reaction to those appearing fingers was covered in scabs as aforementioned, rendered futile, perhaps it could be said to be merely uneasiness and something greater, repugnance. As if the things someone could possibly grasp. Was the self he seeked, truly present ahead? Before he was pulled in, the moment he had reached here, didn't a completely new self of his take shape? Though it was queer imagination, it was not something completely implausible. The truth is, the happenings within his body gave a sudden sense of abruptness inclined towards that, and brought about impracticality. Grasping that as his own affair, accepting the trial which posed in front of him, he seeked the spectacle which lay ahead of overcoming it. For just that, just how much time had he devoted? That is why, he felt a heavy sense of uneasiness. Should he really go ahead of this point? Was the place in which he would be received, accepted, seeked, truly there? Entrustment, forgiveness, faith, wishing, his self which had engaged in all those, was it truly present there? I love you. Such incomparable uneasiness was melted by the voice which felt as if it was leading the way, and fading away. White, bright, tall, precious, beautiful, sweet, light was what he faced. And that soul was, Natsuki Subaru was. Upon that moment, Natsuki Subaru revived and reawakened his consciousness from the deepest of slumbers. Subaru, ah. A weak sigh spilled out of his mouth at first. It was his own voice, though husky and lacking life. But with this, he understood he had not been rendered mentally to a point where he would no longer be able to even speak. This made for a single step forward. As for the rest, he must confirm that he had not been reset to a person with entirely indifferent sense of values. Are you awake, Subaru? Subaru. The chime of a silver bell had been observing Subaru's ear and forehead from the side, immediately close to him. A chime refreshing, kind, peaceful and lovable. The voice he had heard just a few moments ago whilst in a terrible condition. His heart bounced upon hearing it now. With his chest hurting him, Subaru slowly turned sideward. What awaited there was an amethyst glimmer with eyes dyed in concern. Subaru, Emilia? Emilia, yeah, that's right. Subaru, are you okay? Can you get up? Are you able to speak properly? Subaru, With her name called to her, the possessor of the amethyst eyes Emilia wet her lips and tilted her head. Beautiful long silver hair flowed down her white shoulders. It seemed like the glow of the moon was swimming gracefully within light, her heroic beauty scorched Subaru's heart. Frankly speaking, there stood a girl too beautiful to think that she was of this world. Subaru, wah. The moment he grew conscious of that, Subaru's blood flow rejuvenated with great vigor. His face grew warmer, his face became redder, as he darted his eyes in all directions, rendered unable to raise his voice. Blushing so intensely that his ears nearly started hurting, he spilled out a voice saying ahaha, ahaha. Emilia, ahaha. Surprised by his antics, Emilia furrowed her finely shaped eyebrows. Even the slightest of her gestures seemed like a work of art painted with extreme detail by the artist. Witnessing this from a distance where they could feel each other's breaths, Subaru suffered with a rapid increase of heart rate. What's this? Just what was this? Is this real? Isn't this a mirage or an illusion? Speaking of mirages in the middle of a desert, that would be an oasis. In other words, what you see at that moment is what you desire the most. Then in accordance with that rule, this definitely should be a mirage. What an extravagant illusion. Emilia, hey, are you okay, Subaru? Something's wrong after all. You were collapsed, after all. Subaru, bah. Emilia, see, you just said bah. Subaru was caught up in a vortex of confusion, as the reversed palm on his forehead trembled. Upon witnessing that, Emilia blinked her twinkling eyes to confirm Subaru's possible injuries, as Subaru was denied his Emilia illusion whilst he tasted seriousness like that of the scholar who disproved the Ptolemaic theory. However, he certainly did feel the sensation of contact. Reality affirmed her existence. And not only did it affirm that Emilia truly existed, but also that his self was Natsuki Subaru. And above all, what else with this conversing while ignoring Betty? Stop it, I suppose. Geez, it isn't just Emilia who's worried, in fact. Subaru, Huck. Opposite to Amelia, a young voice, seemingly displeased, echoed and turned around. He leapt towards the turned figure, who belonged to a young girl with puffed-up cheeks. Subaru, Beatrice. Beatrice, that's quite the low voice, I suppose? As if you can't believe Betty is here, your expression speaks the same, in fact. Accepting the faint call, Beatrice relaxed her furrowed eyebrows. Though her words were harsh, her voice had a tint of concern and relief. The relief for Subaru waking up, and the concern for Subaru collapsing. Giving that impression, Beatrice's attitude, no, her entire existence jolted Subaru's heart. In other words, Beatrice, Naya. Grabbing Beatrice's figure, Subaru immediately pulled her light body towards his chest. Light. Her body was truly light. Unable to resist upon his sudden action, Beatrice was completely engulfed within Subaru's arms as her eyes encircled. Atop the emerald bed covered with vines and creepers, with all his strength Subaru confirmed her existence. Subaru, Beatrice, Beatrice, Beatrice. Beatrice, www what, I suppose. What happened, in fact? This is too sudden. Subaru, you. You really have such a calming face. Cuteness that's seemingly welcoming someone back to his parents' home. I'll fall for you. Beatrice, what, that better not be a compliment, in fact. Hugging her and viewing Beatrice's face, Subaru said earnestly. Becoming redder due to his actions and words, Beatrice put her palm on Subaru's face with strength. As the young girl's tiny fingers touched his cheek and ear, whilst tasting cute pain, Subaru truly felt the existence of the young girl named Beatrice with certainty. Amelia, geez. Subaru, don't start fooling around immediately after waking up. We don't even know why you collapsed, yet. Feeling slightly left out, so spoke Amelia sharply towards Subaru, who was busy hugging Beatrice. Concerned for Subaru's body, Amelia tried to grab his shoulder but then stopped. Amelia, Subaru? Amelia, tinted with more of concern than rage. The emotions blended within her voice changed into a single shade of worry. Her eyes, painted with surprise, were looking at Subaru whom she had tried to grasp. The shoulder of Subaru, who was faintly trembling and crying. Subaru, kh. Beatrice, Subaru? Subaru, what happened, I suppose? Betty is right here, in fact. It's alright, I suppose. You don't have to cry, in fact. Noticing Subaru's state, who let out a faint wail from his throat and wept, Beatrice erased the color of chaos from her face entirely and caressed Subaru's cheek, which was stained with tears. His faintly trembling hands were trying to release Beatrice's young, petite body. Beatrice understood that anxiety and fear was the cause of that. Henceforth, Beatrice gently called out to his heart. That he doesn't have to cry. That he is alright. That she is right there. Amelia, stop crying, Subaru. You don't have to rush. Slowly, take a deep breath, calm down. Beatrice and I are both right here with you. Just like Beatrice, Amelia consoled Subaru on top of the bed. Her hand, which had earlier halted in hesitation, now touched Subaru's shoulder. Amelia's voice, like the chime of a silver bell, respected Subaru's actions and determinations. The two's existences and ways did not change. The sublime two did not change, even within a world where everything had been brought to ruin, where everything had been lost irrecoverably, they still gave precedence to others, to Subaru instead of themselves even whilst they stood at the door of death. Having confirmed that, having recognized that, this time for sure, he shall work to push through. Natsuki Subaru in order to regain everything as Natsuki Subaru. Subaru, I've returned. A crying voice accompanied with a disheveled attitude, though he had been in other situations which could not have been more pathetic, more disgraceful. Natsuki Subaru commenced a new loop in order to rescue everything. Subaru, and so, it seems that I actually lost my memories in the library of Teijida. I get that this may not mesh well for everyone in a lot of ways and thus quite a problem, but please understand. On the breakfast table, Subaru courteously bowed his head down before all of his comrades, who were sitting in a circle. Such explosive words of Subaru's triggered all kinds of reactions amongst everyone. Even so, the most prominent of them was confusion, mayhem, or grief had seemingly been postponed to later. Amelia, everyone is really worried for Subaru. But Subaru is utmost worried for us so. Ram, Amelia-sama may say so, but... By Subaru's side, Amelia followed up with a concerned yet understanding expression. However, Amelia's words were viewed skeptically by Ram. She folded her own arms and glared at Subaru with her light crimson eyes. Ram doesn't see that Barusu is the one who's utmost worried. Rather, Barusu, what is this farce? Subaru, it's not a farce. I'm speaking my heart out about my concern and the truth really honestly. My chest is about to burst from the idea of being stubborn and not telling about it, considering the tragedy that brings. Ram's glare became increasingly suspicious upon Subaru's response, as he answered with a grim expression. Amelia made a hurried response to the two's severe exchange, having heard the situation moments beforehand in the green room. Upon hearing about his amnesia, Emilia and Beatrice were astonished, but accepted it with concern for Subaru's safety. The sequence followed the footsteps of what had happened previously this time as well, and he had asked her to provide backup to him whilst he opened his heart out. Retiring from that previously horrible environment, Natsuki Subaru now broke into an entirely new environment. Should it be said in a stylish manner, he had determined his resolve to start life in the different world from zero once again, but of course the actual circumstance was nothing so wonderful. It's good that he has resolved, but at that moment wherein he wished for death, it's possible that could have been the end for him. Without that happening to him, and now having gotten a chance to commence again thanks to return by death like this, in all honesty, the relief and gratitude he felt now was insuppressible. However, he had no intention to rely on it. The power of return by death which resided within Subaru's body was an immense power which distorted fate itself. Though death being its trigger was rough on Subaru, the user, but should it be considered compensation for distorting fate, then this would be nothing less than appropriate. A form of compensation, yes, Subaru thought of death as not but a form of compensation. It's natural that a power so great would need to be compensated in some form. Of course, Subaru assumed that that was naturally the case with his return by death as well. A limit on the frequency, or perhaps a need to sacrifice something upon recovering. Subaru did not believe that the goddess of fate would indulge him so much as to grant him an infinite number of trials. The only experience he had of being loved by someone would only be loved by his parents. That would be the only case he could say so confidently. But in that case, the trials and errors for acquiring the knowledge of the limit of return by death, piling up deaths by his own choice, would not be what he would normally choose for. It would not be strange whatsoever if this was his last chance. And if it followed the pattern of sacrificing something, what's common is to give up on a valuable existence or cherished remembrances. Unfortunately, for the amnesiac Subaru, the only valuable existences he had except for his family and the world he was formerly in, were only Emilia and the others who were also with him in the tower. And when he thought that far, Subaru, no way, the disappearance of my memories better not be a compensation for return by death. Though frightening to even think of, it was fairly possible. Sacrificing memories as compensation for return by death. Quite a vicious idea, but return by death itself was not a good act to engage in the first place. What was utmost frightening was that there was no way to confirm if this was the case or not. The truth is, the relationship between Subaru's amnesia and return by death was completely unknown. For the moment, having realized his amnesia, Subaru, who had already died 4 times, had not affirmed his memory loss within his sphere of what all he could gain a grasp on. His memories after his start of waking up in the tower, while on the way back from the convenience store, were vivid. Ram, hey, are you listening, Barusu? Ram's voice, sharp like a blade, brought Subaru back to reality, after him having gotten completely lost in his thoughts. Upon her gaze, Subaru spilled out a voice from his throat saying WH. Subaru, yeah, I'm listening. I know I surprised you. This is way too sudden and I understand that you won't believe it, but... Ram, but... Subaru, Beatrice, Subaru has no reason to say such a duplicitous lie. In fact, Ram must also be holding at least that much trust in Subaru's plans, I suppose. Beatrice responded to Ram in Subaru's stead, while he was busy choosing his words. Having heard the situation back in the green room, she was entirely on Subaru's side as she now sat beside him. Ram, Beatrice-sama. Beatrice, what Emilia said isn't wholly false either. In fact, having lost his memories, the one who's the most worried is Subaru, I suppose. That's why he was even crying like a little kid. In fact, Subaru, talking about that episode makes it so much more embarrassing. Subaru pushed a grin upon the unexpected revelation, and made the reason behind his tears to be this. It actually was due to the fact that he had returned by death, that he was able to reunite with them, that he had been granted a chance to redo. Those tears had many factors to them, but tears are ultimately tears. It's meaningless to investigate the reason behind a man's tears. Regardless, his gratitude to Beatrice as she now sided with him was insuppressible. Just like Emilia, Beatrice had been confused at first upon hearing him in the green room, but not only did she less more time than Emilia to digest what he said, she promised to support him with wiseness and sensibility unbefitting her appearance. Reminded of the transient relief he had shown her, and the words taking outside which Beatrice had said at the very end last time, Subaru felt agony like his heart was being strangled by chains. Just what did Natsuki Subaru do to Beatrice? He felt guilty relying on her faith despite not being aware of that. But he must accept it as a matter of course, he admonished himself. Subaru, to be honest, it would be a bit unreasonable to reject the theory of me having no reason to lie so directly about having lost my memories, but I want you to just digest that. Ram, digest that, you say? Subaru, on top of that, let's talk about something constructive. Luckily, my present self is facing forward. I'd give a large welcome to talking about advancing forward. But if you have something to say, then I'll properly listen to it. Under the cover of Beatrice's comments, Subaru said so and bowed his head once again. In order to follow up with Subaru, Emilia also bowed her head saying please trust him. Witnessing Emilia, Beatrice and Subaru's meek attitudes, even Ram was unable to pronounce words of rebuttal. Although, even if they make an angry response, it would only be natural and reasonable. Of course, it wasn't just Ram who was impacted by Subaru's avouched amnesia. Just because she made the most striking reaction, the reactions of the people besides Ram, Echidna, Julius and Shala's reaction also aligned with what Subaru had already experienced twice. In all honesty, his reunion with Amelia and Beatrice alone had been quite something, but the moment he saw and reunited with everyone present all together in this place, Subaru's heart received a fierce jolt. Julius, whom he had left on the lower floor along with Reed. Echidna, who had gotten both of her legs blown off and lost her life while apologizing for doubting Subaru. Shala, who did not show her form amidst all of that mayhem and chaos. And finally Ram, who directed the utmost powerful suspicion towards Subaru, and did not meet him again thereafter. Everyone was here. He had been granted an opportunity to exchange words with everyone once again. And above all, the one whom Subaru had been the most conscious of in this place. Meili, nevertheless, Oni-san is truly such a troubled person. Subaru, Huck. Meili, what's with that reaction? Making a face like you've met a dead person, isn't it terribly rude? So recited the young girl, not too surprised by what Subaru had said. With her dark blue hair tied into a braid, the young killer wearing a stylish black outfit Meili. Meili Portroot was certainly there, moving and talking. Subaru, Meili. Meili, oh. You remember my name, don't you? In fact, I don't know what's different about Oni-san compared to normal circumstances, so what did you forget? Subaru, yeah, it's a bit complicated. Right now it may seem like I'm having no difficulty when conversing, but once you start digging deeper it becomes a mess. In other words, it's what they call episodic memory loss. I remember names of stuff quite well, but remembrances with people are all very uncertain. Meili, are you referring to, for example, what happened yesterday? Subaru, that's right. Meili straightened her eyes, as her voice became faintly deeper. Subaru hesitated only for a second upon her question, but responded without falling to the pressure. He perhaps could have talked his way out with a rough excuse, but he did not do that. He had decided to not do that. Sabara shall remain honest with them as long as possible. Julius, forgot about yesterday, huh? That's, well. Hearing Subaru's response, as if having received a shock greater than simply his claims about amnesia in a certain sense, whispered Julius accompanied solely by Echidna, somewhat suspiciously. However, putting their reactions aside. Shala, Master Sama, did you lose memories again? How many times will you forget about me until you're satisfied? I'm Meiching. Pushing in her voluptuous breasts, Shala said so whilst making a sour expression. Shala's silly comments followed the same style as last time, but after coming this far, her comments left a strong impression of having an inexcusably odd ambience. Subaru, delving deep into your nonsense also feels weird, but did this Master Sama of yours really keep throwing memories around like this? Shala? Yeah, he kept throwing them around quite a lot. When he woke up in the morning and I greeted him, he said, "Who are you again? I don't remember you. I don't know you," and treated me like a woman the really old-fashioned way. Subaru, if it's at that level, then it's difficult to determine if it was just a bad joke or what. Though only an assumption, but if Subaru got closer to Shala, and in ordinary life hereafter, that kind of a frivolous exchange seems really possible. However, Subaru was aware that there existed a self of his who lost his memories and concealed that from Amelia and the others, and chose not to speak of him losing his memories. Deceiving that he had lost his memories under the cover of pretending it to be a bad joke would also be a move that existed. Though by his own perspective, that would be deathly difficult. And since he had indeed died 4 times, this wouldn't be a joke either. Echidna, the aforementioned amnesia is understood. I wouldn't say it's something that won't take any time to fully accept. But if there are things like traps which are capable of possibly triggering this phenomenon, then it seems it would be better to act while keeping that in consideration. Subaru, the place with the highest possibility as the crime scene is the library of Teijida, where Amelia-chan found me collapsed. It seems like the place with the most history too. Amelia-chan. Subaru? Echidna commenced the discussion with a serious expression, and Subaru nodded in agreement. However, in the midst of it, Amelia's lonesome mumble left quite an impression. Previously she had shown reactions with this expression in the middle of conversing with Subaru several times as well. In the end, the reason for it yet remained unclear. Was he perhaps overlooking something fatal? That was frightening. Subaru, anyway, everyone, sorry for surprising you all. I think it's pointless to tell you all to suddenly accept it and continue on at the same pace. Let's take a break for now. In that time I'll go draw water with Ram or something. Putting forward that suggestion, Subaru stood up. Ram raised her eyebrows upon what he said, whilst Amelia and Beatrice looked at Subaru anxiously. However, nodding to the two's look, Subaru turned his black eyes towards Ram. Subaru, let's go, Ram. You were just making a face as if calling me to fetch water with you. Ram, filthy. Averting her gaze, Ram whispered in response to Subaru's invitation. Ram, so, what was the meaning of that farce earlier? Now that you've taken Ram out like this, you intend to talk about it now, right? With a bucket in her hand, Ram and Subaru headed to the water well away from the place of assembly. And once judging that they had taken sufficient distance from Amelia and the others, Ram fired her question. Her not accepting Subaru's claims regarding amnesia whatsoever is something which happened each round. She was not being simply stubborn or being skeptical of the evidence, but she had a further important reason behind it. The existence of Ram's beloved younger sister, who remained asleep. In concern for her, Ram was unable to accept Subaru's amnesia. That was why she persistently denied Subaru's amnesia. He didn't know any particulars. But surely, Subaru had some sort of a connection with Ram when she was awake. And that had been an immense support for Ram, for her existence as the elder sister. That is why. Ram, kindly stop entrusting too many important roles on Emilia-sama or Beatrice-sama. Beatrice-sama aside, it would be far too heavy a burden for Emilia-sama. That is why it would be appreciated if you involve Ram now. The details are. Subaru, Ram, it's true that I've lost my memories. Neither is it a lie, nor a plan. Ram tried to be relied upon, clinging onto that fine thread. However, Subaru must deny her. Ram's words were interrupted by Subaru's straightforward remark, and she narrowed her eyes. Levitating within her light crimson eyes was confusion, fear and rage. Rage which could scorch and burn Subaru's soul. And the reason for its existence were her suspicions for Natsuki Subaru. Subaru, I've lost my memories. I have a grasp on the names and relationships of everyone within the tower, but I can't remember a single thing aside from that. That's also true. Ram, kindly stop. Subaru, I did talk to Amelia and Beatrice earlier, but I conveyed them the same thing. I have nothing else to convey. Right now, my hands are all empty. Ram, kindly stop, Barusu. If you say anything more than that. Subaru, I know that we came to this tower to regain a lot of things which were robbed away from us. That we're in the midst of the trial too. That's all. My intention is. Ram, Barusu, if you say anything more than this. Subaru, about Ram too, I have. Ram, Barusu. Subaru heartbreakingly conveyed to Ram that he had forgotten. Denoting that she denied it, that she didn't want to listen to Subaru's words with her attitude, and upon hearing Subaru's apology, Ram grabbed Subaru as an expression of her rage. Subaru, go. With his collars grasped, his back was thrown onto the wall. With unbelievable physical strength stemming from her build, Ram pinned Subaru and glared at him from a close distance. He understood that the fire within her light crimson eyes was trying to scorch Subaru and Ram herself. The instant this fire scorches Subaru scorches Ram, the tragedy will be repeated. Ram, what's your intention? Saying such a stupid lie. Subaru, it's not a lie. For me, lying to you is. Ram, so you're saying you've not lied? Then what should be done according to you? That Ram should trust you? That Barusu forgot Ram. Something so ridiculous. Subaru, Ram. Further sharpening her eyes, Ram scowled at Subaru from a distance so close their lips could touch each other. Finally Subaru noticed that fire was not so much made up of rage as much as it was made of tears. Her conflict went far deeper than what Subaru could ever imagine. Subaru finally managed to grasp that, after repeating 4 times. How prudent does one have to be to think it was possible to understand the emotions, the wounds others harbored in their chest? Subaru came to realize this after repeating the same foul play 4 times, whilst Amelia and the others realized at once, which seemed dazzling to him. Unable to merely be scorched by that dazzle, Subaru. Subaru, I will get Rem back for sure. Ram, Huck. Glaring back into the light crimson eyes, Subaru poured strength into his throat and conveyed clearly. Upon hearing that, Ram's eyes widened once again in surprise, but her rage concealed that. Ram, how can you talk? About getting her back or whatever, Barusu, you forgot about Rem, didn't you? Subaru, but still, I'll get her back. Rem, my memories, the goal behind coming to this tower, accomplishing and regaining everything without leaving a single thing, will all go back together. It is a matter of course that I guarantee at least that. Ram, Barusu? Subaru, it is a matter of course. When you think of everything which happened in this tower. He was finding it difficult to breathe. Yet, Subaru distorted his cheeks for a different reason. Ram raised her eyebrows upon Subaru's reaction, and slightly relaxed her hands which had grabbed his collars. Now, Subaru grabbed hold of her hands and pulled them apart. At the same pace, their bodies switched positions. Ram, filthy. Kindly let go. Having gotten pinned to the wall now after their positions switched, Ram declared before Subaru whilst she shared glares with him. However, though powerless, Subaru did not flinch away from saying the words he intended to speak. Subaru, Ram. I'm going to definitely get back both my memories and REM. For that, please lend me your strength. Subaru, I need everyone's strength. The Natsuki Subaru who was there until yesterday, whom you all knew, may not have said something so pathetic. But for my present self. Julius commended to him, Beatrice trusted him, Echidna forgave him, Amelia wished for him. And perhaps Natsuki Subaru, whom everyone held expectations for, may have changed the stalemated situation by himself. However, the present Natsuki Subaru was not capable of that. And the people within this tower were far too loving for him to throw a tantrum and give up, saying that he couldn't do anything. Subaru, I know you won't believe or forgive me for forgetting REM. But please keep that rage of yours for later. In exchange for that, I promise you. Ram, promise. Subaru, I will carry through, no matter what. I'll eat it all up, no matter how many tries it takes. If I break this promise, if I give up in front of you, then feel free to do whatever you'd like to me, burn me, scorch me, anything. Ram's eyes widened, and the flame of rage within them weakened. What appeared instead of rage now, was an emotion which she had kept concealed until now. Whilst witnessing that, Subaru pulled back his head and continued with his straightforward approach with her, and continued his words from the same distance as when their glances had entangled when he had been trapped in the cage of ice. Subaru, that is, my resolve. Ram, why would you go that far? If Barusu has truly forgotten, then you shouldn't think of getting Rem back this much. Ram, once you forget, it all turns into a void. It becomes a gaping vacuum, and the feelings for what used to be there all disappear. All vanish. Love, hatred, warmth, loneliness, everything. Ram's quiet tone was feigned over by her cold attitude. Those terribly experienced words perhaps spoke of the void she had experienced herself. That is why she found Subaru's resolve to be difficult to trust. She believed that it was impossible to possess such a strong desire when embraced by that void. Subaru, the truth is, that's true. My memories are blank, and the feelings which myself, who was there until yesterday, felt for Rem have all slipped out of my hand, but... Ram, then, why? Subaru, but I know that you cherish Ram and desperately want to get her back. He had seen Ram's form struggling, desperately wishing for regaining her beloved younger sister, Rem. By witnessing a wish and love so strong with his own eyes, Subaru had been overwhelmed. And the desperate Ram was one of the people Subaru wished to be saved as well. Subaru, right now, the reason I want to get Rem back is for Natsuki Subaru, and you. Subaru, that's why, I'm counting on you for when I give up. Do whatever you'd like to with my head, that is my atonement, myself who made you cry. Ram never cried, don't fool around. Subaru, that hurt hook. Receiving a tight slap on the side of his face, Subaru crumbled on that very spot. Slapped on the cheek which had gotten flushed, Subaru looked at Ram as if he was looking at something unbelievable. Subaru, why you? I was, just now, saying something pretty brave. Ram, getting all energetic on your own accord, what do you mean by saying something brave? First things first, Barusu making a promise is laughable itself. Quite impressive how you yourself proposed what is the last thing that can be trusted in this world. Subaru, I said the same to Amelia-chan, but how many promises did the me until yesterday break? Ram, was there even a single promise that was kept? Subaru, that bad of a level. Vilified by the voice which had gotten colder, Subaru re-evaluated Natsuki Subaru. All other things good or bad aside, but it seemed breaking promises was a common occurrence. First of all, the greatest obligation for keeping promises was to make efforts for the same. Protecting promises even when not being watched by anyone, and that was why humans often put themselves to a disadvantage on their own volition. If not, it served as a proof of one possessing a deficient spirit. Subaru, I guess, someone like Natsuki Subaru was a half-decent guy after all. Ram, yes, that would be right. It seemed like you misunderstood, but the Barusu until yesterday wasn't a capable man who could manage everything by himself either. Rather, he was a simpleton and his speciality was that whenever he tried to manage something by himself, he would only enlarge the damage in the end. Ram also got caught up in a lot of the trouble. Subaru, are you serious? Why did you bring a guy like that to the tower? Ram, he butted in. Along with that, he was a man of mere words and lip service. Skillful in its own way, and looked forward to chores being entrusted upon him. Also, he was also good at dandling Amelia-sama and Beatrice-sama, isn't it? After that. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Subaru felt far too uncomfortable. He was being scolded about himself, even though it wasn't even about himself. Being told much about Natsuki Subaru by Amelia, and the rest also felt agonizing in quite a complicated manner, and Ram firing words and speaking ill of Natsuki Subaru like this also felt, well, complicated. Subaru became serious, determining to hear it to the end this time. Subaru, what else? Short legs, bad at remembering things, had an unhealthy diet, stubborn? Ram, he had short legs, he was bad at remembering, he had an unhealthy diet, he was stubborn. Subaru, I suppose so. Ram, along with that, he cherished REM. Suddenly, her tone changed and colors were painted into Ram's cold voice. If the warmth of voice was to have a color, it would be a tender soft crimson. Rem, her affection for her younger sister in her voice, and reminded of Natsuki Subaru who used to be by her younger sister's side, she showed a glimpse of tender love, which shall never disappear. Such that Subaru hallucinated, that soft crimson was the color of kindness. Ram, Barusu. Did you truly forget Rem? Subaru, yeah. Ram's eyes were reflecting Subaru, and she never averted them. Truly respectable. In this kind of a scene, made to hear the words he did not want to hear, Subaru would probably avert his eyes. Yet she, Ram, didn't try to avert her gaze even once. Ram, Barusu. You will really remember Rem again, right? Subaru, yeah, I'll remember her again. And not just Rem, but everything else too. Ram, it won't be the worst even if you don't remember everything else. Kindly remember just Rem again. Subaru, don't be absurd. Let me remember everything again. Ram, saying it once again. Kindly remember just Rem again, even if you need to die for it. Subaru, yeah, I swear. Even if I die, I will remember everything again. Remember everything again even if he has to die, quite literally. What did Natsuki Subaru see, hear, feel, establish to come this far in this different world? Natsuki Subaru shall recover all of it. Ram, all right. You're free to go this time. Upon hearing his response, the intimidating air surrounding Ram suddenly disappeared. Sensing that, Subaru asked, "Are you sure?" Whilst remaining on the floor. Subaru, I know I requested this, but are you really fine with just this? Ram, you're a man, aren't you? Kindly accept it head-on. Barusu's resolve has been heard. And on top of that, you even said that anything could be done to you, burn you, scorch you, whittle you, gouge you in case you give up. If you found it difficult to hear that, then Ram's motherly affectionate heart will suspect you. Subaru, I don't remember anything about whittling and gouging though. Ram, did you say something? Subaru, I did not. Shaking his head, Subaru responded to Ram politely. It would perhaps be amusing that when he shall not be able to rely on any god, then perhaps he should resign himself to this motherly affection for casting judgment upon him. Ram, stand up, Barusu. Ram won't allow you to give up or kneel down. Subaru, don't group sitting on the floor together with them. Here. Standing up, Subaru brushed off his behind and faced Ram. Ram, with her back resting on the wall and arms folded after adjusting her disheveled clothes, had already gone back to her normal state, and Ram glared at Subaru, suggesting to him that this was her normal state. Ram, did you tell Emilia-sama and Beatrice-sama the same thing? Subaru, those two. Seem like they didn't even consider me giving up as a possibility, that's why. Ram, that's so. The fault is them being infected with Barusu. Subaru, that's why, I won't request those two. Nor Julius or Echidna, emotionally you see. Also perhaps, when it came to Amelia and Beatrice, Julius and Echidna. He believed he had heard their thoughts during the events that happened last time. That is why, he shall confirm the remaining answer ahead of now. Subaru, but you know. Going by what you said, it seems to me until yesterday wasn't too impressive of a guy either. Ram, for Ram, your worth changes immensely depending on whether you have the memories of Ram or not. Kindly watch what you ask. With a cold declaration, Ram turned her back towards Subaru and started walking. The two weren't really supposed to have the time to stop their feet whilst fetching water, but they did not want to worry Amelia and the others unnecessarily if they returned empty-handed. Subaru held the bucket in his hand, whilst Ram stood beside him. And? Subaru, Natsuki Subaru was here for certain, right? With a faint voice, Subaru directed his question towards Ram's side profile. This was more of an anxious cry than seeking confirmation. Not more than words unsuitable immediately after pledging to not give up. He knew it won't be strange for Ram to reprimand him, as he stood with his tongue dry. Ram, truly a fool. However, without doing anything of such sort and without halting her feet, Ram disparaged Subaru in seeming affection. Ram, right now, it has just momentarily become invisible. It just feels like it's lost due to being under the depth of a variety of things which had been accumulated. Like flowers buried under the cold snow, once the season of snowmelt arrives they shall be visible once again. Surely, that's all there is to it. Yes, Subaru could not show his current expression to Ram, who was hiding her own. Immediately after acting so boldly, he could never show her an expression this pathetic. That is why Ram's way, as she remained quiet without even attempting to look at him, at this moment, truly seemed like a mother's affection to Subaru. The situation had largely changed or so he wanted to think, but the changes were not so great. This was not the first time Subaru had opened his heart out after losing his memories, and the impact everyone felt is also a spectacle he had witnessed. But should he change his heart stance, everyone's point of view shall also respectively change. Last time, Subaru much distrusted Emilia and the others, and that was due to several factors such as their actions, attitudes and words. Firmly believing that they had all been plotting something. However, upon doing away with those misgivings, he realized that their actions, attitudes and words were all in concern for him, and he rebuked himself. In other words, they restrained themselves to make sure Subaru was not made to feel anxious. Suspecting their actions was a problem entirely on Subaru's part. Subaru, let's do it properly. Do it properly, Natsuki Subaru. Telling himself so, Subaru glanced at his palm. The cause of the disappearance of Subaru's memories was highly likely to be Intagida. Though walking through the trial was also important, investigating the cause behind this amnesia was also urgent business. There was no guarantee that it may not eventually develop into a ridiculous situation where everyone forgot each other and greeted each other saying hello, who might be upon seeing each other. And the truth was, he very much had the flexibility to proceed with it all slowly. Subaru, last time, and the time before that too, everything in the tower was a total mess. Last time, Subaru had successively discovered the dead bodies of Amelia, and the others no, of everyone except Amelia and Beatrice. Last time was different, he got to witness the deaths of his comrades with his own eyes, and his heart fell into desolation and ruin. However, all of those abnormalities were disasters which should occur within the tower not so far into the future. As one who was aware of the damage these disasters cause, Subaru must try to stop them from happening. For that purpose, he shall dedicate all the strength he possessed. That's why, first, Subaru will. A faint breath was present behind Subaru, who was standing at a great height. A moderate level of attempt to conceal existence, sensing it was possible if one was conscious of it. Perceiving the foul play thanks to the knowledge he possessed beforehand, he turned his body around just on the verge. Huck. Subaru, whoops, that was dangerous. Don't he fall down instead of me. Striking the two hands stretched out, his opponent's body pitched forward, Subaru instantaneously grasped the stretched out hand to make sure nobody fell. That body was light. Lightness befitting the appearance of the young girl, yes, calling her a young girl would be adequate. Subaru, alright, let's talk. I'll have you take responsibility for killing me. Saying so, Subaru smiled at the young girl whose elbow he had grasped melee, commencing the climax of this mystery of catching the criminal who pushed him off twice in the past. Chapter 56, talking about what awaits. Possessing the hazardous intent to make him lose balance and fall down the spiral staircase, the girl melee looked on in surprise. Closing his dark eyes, Subaru could not help but grumble upon this situation, a turn of events he had predicted but doubted halfway through. He was glad that by using Return by Death, he was able to eventually prevent this tragedy from happening. This was also proof that this young girl had been the one to push Subaru's back twice in the past, in different timelines. To think that the criminal who had pushed Subaru from a height and into his doom, who had been killed by the very hands of Natsuki Subaru previously, was Melee Potroot. Melee, responsibility for killing me, there you go again saying strange things, Oni-san. At that moment, as Melee widened her eyes and loosened her lips, Subaru's arm immediately turned and his finger traced his torso, whilst he continued to smile. She took a step backwards whilst facing Subaru, who was standing at a distance from the spiral staircase. Melee, perhaps your mind lost a lot of other stuff along with memories. This misunderstanding can happen only then. Subaru, misunderstanding? Melee, yes, don't you think so? Me trying to kill Oni-san would be a terrible misunderstanding. Inching backwards, Melee said so with a smile. Witnessing her truly dignified approach, this was something beyond even Subaru's expectations. He believed that he would never be able to avoid this mishap. But should the one he was struggling against be myself know, Melee, then he might just manage to convince her. She acted quietly, adamantly, that too unfavorably. Choosing the most seemingly optimal solution momentarily was her way of living. Frankly, that was precisely a beast's way of living. Melee, there is no need to be suspicious. Had I really wanted to kill Oni-san, wouldn't the sand dunes have been better for that rather than this tower? Oni-san doesn't remember all that, so you may not know. Subaru, I guess so. It's weird. If you intended to kill from the very beginning, then you must have gotten countless chances to do so. But you didn't do so. Melee, don't you agree? Then. Subaru, but the matter of your motivation to kill me sprouting and growing since this morning is a totally separate issue. Am I correct to say that this is a chain reaction due to what happened last night? Melee. Melee's facial expression changed upon what Subaru mentioned. She sealed her lips, erased her smile, and then took a deep sigh. And shrugged her shoulders with an unfavorable attitude, unfitting of her appearance. Melee, could it be, I have been trapped into this awkward situation, I suppose? Subaru, what do you mean by awkward situation? Melee, isn't that what you tried? Lying about your memory loss, to see whether I would push off Oni-san. To eliminate any obstacles that you may have on your side. To see how useful I was in this tower. This would be the perfect time and chance to do so. The girl, who tried to reaffirm the authenticity of the situation, was displeased by her disadvantageous position. Certainly, up to this point she had displayed no malice whatsoever on her part, but it was also true that Subaru knew how Melee would act beforehand. Even if she shall deny it, the evidence against Melee shan't be altered. However, there were some things that could be said clearly. Those being. Melee, well, what exactly should I do? Since everything has already come this far, should I try resisting and running away from here? Especially when those bad animal-chans aren't here, even I can get away from Oni-san by myself. Subaru, don't get me wrong, Melee. My memory loss isn't a lie for deceiving you. It's the truth, that's why I'm being serious, like I should be. Melee, that's that, I actually did doubt whether you were lying or not, but In the end, what is it that Oni-san wants to do? Do you think I believe it just because I'm not retaliating in response? Subaru, Huck. The young girl put her hands on her slender neck, saying so whilst showing her tongue. At that moment, Subaru's heart rate accelerated. However, ironically enough, it was a metaphor for simply killing, not something as ridiculous as merely remembering her own death. With that conviction, the young female assassin gestured her capability to deal serious damage to Subaru's heart. That's why Subaru did not intend to let her act on that conviction, but... Melee, actually, I really don't recommend using ways of killing that take a long time. I do have methods that don't require much suffering, but Oni-san is pretty bad at hiding stuff. Subaru, I don't intend to kill or hurt you. Even after this, tomorrow onward as well, whatever awaits, I intend to treat you the same way as I have done till now. Melee, ha. Melee once again changed her expression, hearing Subaru's response. However, this was unlike the change that had come upon her when she had opted for the optimal solution for the immediate situation. Melee's expression was filled with obvious dismay, as she looked at Subaru with eyes that could not comprehend what he was saying. Upon that gaze, Subaru nodded. Subaru, fortunately, your crime was prevented beforehand, and so if we were to keep it a secret, it'll all be fine. Even if you just think of killing me through some different method, all I'll have to do is prevent that as well. Although, all this undeniably leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Really bad. Melee, what are you? Subaru, but at least, did you get it this time? Doing something to me is an incredibly huge risk for you. If you're going to say but still and continue, then, at the very least let's just talk properly. If you're still dissatisfied, I'll hear as much as I. Melee, dissatisfied? Dissatisfied, you say? Abruptly, Melee murmured with a quiet and shivering voice. Afterwards, she sharpened her lips. Melee, what's dissatisfying is this situation? I can't believe it. Subaru was saying all this in order to persuade her into making a moderate decision. Following up with that, Melee shouted, with her eyes looking at Subaru as if she were looking at something unbelievable. Melee, can't believe it, I can't believe it. Whilst she pronounced so, her hands busily toyed with her braid. It was visibly evident to Subaru that she had gotten perplexed regarding her own mental self-defense, and that this was a sign of dependence on someone who had the same hairstyle. Melee, Oni-san has no idea about what I tried to do right now. If that's wrong then, it's strange. If that's wrong then. With words filled with frustration, Melee's attitude was unnaturally desperate. This was Subaru's first time seeing Melee so disturbed. No, rather he had first seen her like this in her Book of the Dead. After what she had done last night, encountering Subaru in Teijida, and after having a conversation with Natsuki Subaru, she had decided to kill the amnesiac Natsuki Subaru. However, this plan of murder, carried out in such a hurry, would have had been a double-edged sword for her too. Although Subaru would have been pushed off to death, ignorant, how did she plan to escape the allegations of murder that could be placed upon her after Subaru's death? It was probably possible to cover it up as just an accident, or perhaps not. Should it be Amelia, Beatrice, Ram or any of the others, by now, Subaru knew that they would not let his death slide by without even trying to uncover the truth behind it. In that case, it was inevitable that Melee's crime would eventually come to light. Ram, Julius, or Echidna were much smarter than Subaru, and they would be able to see through to the truth behind his death at once. It was unimaginable to think that Melee had never taken that into her consideration. That's why this is. Subaru, this is just a desperate urge of yours. You just have a habit of murder. You don't even consider other factors for solving issues. That isn't her fault. Melee, Huck. Don't talk like you understand. What does Oni-san? What do you know about me? Subaru, I do know. Melee. Melee, grinding her teeth, stiffened herself as if she had been doused in cold water. Looking straight at Melee, Subaru assertively declared. Subaru, Melee. I know about you. I know it may sound pretty creepy, but I may even know more about you than the only other two people in this world that know about you, Upon Subaru's shrug, Melee's worry intensified. Believing that it was completely obvious, however, at the same time, Subaru was looking for a way to convey that undeniable truth. He was struggling with the twisted self-love in the back of his chest. He shall remember my never-ending temptation. A whispering voice seemed to echo right before Natsuki Subaru took any action, repeatedly tempting Subaru to solve his problems through murder, the worst course of action packed with cowardice. By reading her Book of the Dead, the ghost of the dead Melee Potroot and its temptations had returned to haunt Natsuki Subaru. Subaru, no, that's not it. Shaking his head, Subaru then pondered over what the girl he had killed had done. During all this time, something had happened. Visibly evident from the confusion and frustration of the girl standing before him. Above all, recalling what Subaru had seen about Melee in her Book of the Dead. Considering what Melee had suffered through, it could never be said that she became simply murderous. This was not the same Melee as the one in her Book of the Dead. That was something Subaru's soft heart was somewhat sure about. After all, upon that evidence, the girl with that voice did not show herself to Subaru. Putting it terribly straightforwardly, Subaru had lived through the life of Meili by the Book of the Dead. This was her mindset in normal daily life, creating an impression, establishing a way of action. However, she never thought of ending someone's life with such lack of fairness and reason. In those days, there was an unquestionable emptiness in Meili's heart, and her experiences increased the fear inside her, but there remained alone something that glimmered within herself. Its name being Subaru, Elsa Grandheart. Meili, Huck. Subaru, that is the reason why you tried to kill me, yes? Upon that question, Meili's facial expression distorted with bitterness. That was the rage of getting something sensitive that should never be touched, being prodded, no, being trampled upon. However, Subaru yet dared to do so. Because Subaru, remove your shoes when entering someone's house, but rudely walk in while wearing shoes when entering into others' hearts is the rule of the Natsuki household. As one of its members, Subaru climbed into the heart of the young assassin. This was something akin to forcing himself into her heart. A murderer of Black, whom Subaru did not know, but was familiar with. Just thinking about her gave rise to feelings in the heart, like a desire of relief, longing, sadness and rage, and emptiness. The feelings that Meili felt for her were extremely complicated, yet extremely simple. Meili longed for Elsa, loved her, and admired her. That's why, having her be stolen away gave rise to despair, suffering, hatred, wrath, murderous intent, and despondency. All of the time she had accompanied Subaru and the others in their journey, it had all been for the sake of revenge. Could not be said for her unskilled self. In fact, it could be said that Meili was very clumsy. A despairing young girl who was ignorant about her own emotions, enough to not know about the depth of the scar in her heart. A professional assassin who made up her own environment, that's who Meili Potroot was. Subaru, did you want to take revenge? Meili. I don't know. Subaru, even so, Elsa was. Meili, I have no such wish. I am well aware of that. Meili shook her head twice in response to Subaru's question. Subaru understood Meili's feelings. And Meili was also well aware of where Subaru's words were coming from. In this situation, Subaru and Meili stood equal to each other. That's why, filled with sadness and stuck in a dark chamber ignorant of the correct answer, all she could do in order to express her emotions was to act like the assassin she is in murder. At the same time, the hatred that Meili held while remaining trapped in that world, left solely that option for her. Despite all this, Meili's desperation for Elsa did not reach its end. For Meili, Elsa may have been a shining light, but that light was far too dazzling for ordinary people to follow. Subaru, I know that you are holding back your feelings. But the answer you're looking for probably cannot be found this way. That's why. Subaru, leave this place to me. I won't make things worse. At the very least, I'll work hard to make sure things don't get worse. If you'd believe that. Meili, I can't trust anything which may come out of Oni-san's mouth. No matter how forcefully Subaru persuaded, Meili, who was hiding her face, did not nod even slightly. That was obvious. Because that meant finding a way of action that did not exist in her way of life. On the other hand, there was Natsuki Subaru, who shall propose and preach whatever he wants to without flinching even the slightest. On top of that, if a senior ever invited him to a place with full preparation and bashed him, even Subaru would be surprised by how much it would sting. Henceforth, since he had an idea that she would say this, he had well prepared other measures. Subaru, so what comes out of my mouth cannot be trusted, I will reflect on that. Thanks, until yesterday I was already pretty bad with promises. That's why. Meili, that's why? Subaru, instead of a promise between you and me, let's make a promise between you and us. Upon Subaru's words, Meili frowned, unaware of his intentions. However, the answer to her doubts was brought to light soon afterward. That being, it's fine. I was also carefully listening, as a witness of the promise. Meili, Huck. Hearing that voice, Meili's shoulders shivered, but she managed to compose herself. What appeared in before her next was an outstanding beauty, whose magnificence could not be doubted. Upon her appearance, Meili's eyes widened and her lips trembled. Meili, Oni-san. You heard everything? Subaru told me to stay here and see. To stop Meili if she was going to do something dangerous, that's what he said. Saying so, stepping into the place where both of them stood, with fluttering hair that was reminiscent of the glitter of moonlight and standing as a figure of a seemingly mythical beauty, was Emilia. Hearing Emilia's words, Meili rotated her neck in astonishment. Meili, if I did something dangerous. Not, Oni-san. Emilia, yeah, if Meili did something dangerous. Well, is it okay now, Subaru? Subaru, yeah, that's right. It's just that it made me a bit anxious. Emilia? Why are you turning your face away? Did something happen, Subaru? Subaru, no, it's just that you're just too cute to look at directly. Subaru responded with a whisper to Emilia's question, who had tilted her neck. As Emilia furthermore tilted her neck, Subaru managed to put aside the trembling of his throat and his embarrassment and turned his attention to the perplexed Meili once again. As Subaru had foreseen the attack, he was confident about stopping Meili's crime. The problem after that was the occurrence of Natsuki Subaru. Speaking of his purpose, it may be possible that in the loop when Natsuki Subaru had killed Meili, it may have had been simply self-defense against Meili's attempt to murder, and immediately after stopping her, Natsuki Subaru did not necessarily take actions against Subaru's will. Therefore Subaru determined that he would leave this problem to people stronger than him. He has complete faith that even if his consciousness disappeared, and Natsuki Subaru appeared, Emilia will certainly know, his comrade shall certainly do something about it. Emilia, listen, Meili. I believe what Subaru has said. If Meili can't believe it, then it's fine to just carefully observe him. And if he breaks the promise, I'll be angry alongside. Meili, observe, Oni-san. That's weird. Isn't that strange? Observing Oni-san and Wani-san is what I. Emilia, if Meili wants to do something bad, that can be only after Subaru actually breaks the promise. Till then, observe whether he breaks it or not. Isn't that fair? Meili was confused by Emilia's words, who bent enough to have their eyes at the same level. Inside her mind, her ways of coping with and solving truths and circumstances distorted and crumbled. Subaru, you seem to be about to make a huge mistake, but mine and Emilia-chan's nice save somehow prevented that. That's why, this is your chance to learn how it should have actually been done. This is your chance to find a different solution than killing me. It's a bet. Meili, bet. Subaru, settle down the evil feelings inside you, and see whether you still want to kill me, or whether you've changed your mind. I'll also do my best at giving you lectures about morality. Scratching his head, Subaru laid down this path for Meili's confusion. Frankly, unneeded care was unneeded and intrusive. There was a certain way of living that Meili had followed until now, and Subaru was trying to arbitrarily open new options for her. But, should she refuse it, her path will meet a dead end because of the sand tower. If her way of life is followed, they couldn't possibly ever conquer this sand tower together. And Subaru, I'm not letting you get off this train. I don't know how old you are or anything, but when I was around your age, I got the adults around me to help me all the time. Meili. Subaru, that's why, I will help you even if you don't want me to. You are far too young to think stuff like what you should be doing or refusing adults' help. Saying so, Subaru stepped forward to reduce the distance between him and Meili. Seeing the distance between them shrink, Meili's shoulders shivered. Subsequently, Subaru patted the head of the nervous Meili, who looked up with uneasiness in her eyes. He won't crush that thin neck. He presented this decisively different alternative to Natsuki Subaru. Meili was a child that did not need to die. And Emilia, I sincerely request, please trust Subaru. Trust us, Meili. Meili, While Subaru caressed her head, Emilia hugged her from behind, leaving her completely immobile. Embracing her body, Emilia rubbed her cheek against her as Meili lightly bit her lips. Emilia, this sand tower is a place too small for you to decide something big. Emilia, leave this place, go to a bigger place and find your answer there. We will also work really hard. Teaching her all this when she possessed feelings, whilst trapped in such a cage, was not exactly the best thing to do. Even so, this was the only way Subaru could have said it. With complete, utmost care and kind words, they conveyed it to Meili. In response, Meili repeatedly and thoughtfully glanced into their eyes. Meili, I don't want to, forget about Elsa. Subaru, that's fine. There is no need to forget someone you loved. It's just that, well. Cutting his own words off, Subaru thought of the beautiful woman of black he witnessed in the Book of the Dead. What a strange impression. He had never been in contact with her, yet she still has a sense of familiarity. Reminiscing such an opponent, Subaru subconsciously stroked his guts. Subaru, even if it's someone you love, I wish you don't imitate their way of doing things. Yes, he believed so. Meili was powerless, had lost her path, but still, after several silent seconds had passed, she nodded. End of chapters 55 and 56, You Who Awaits the Snowmelt.